your rate is staying the same for both personal property and real estate. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about personal property, and I've worked with Valerie, and she has come up with a plan to try to mitigate some of that for our citizens. The 22 personal property tax assessment will utilize a 75% ratio against the assessed value according to the National Automobile Dealers Association pricing guide, which will allow for some temporary tax relief due to the appreciation of vehicles as a result of the economic impact of COVID. And so that's a shift from assessing at 100% value to assessing at 75% value. It's the same rate, so you don't have to change your rate, but it's the value of the vehicle that can be assessed at a lower rate. And she has some verbiage that you had in your packets to support that. It'll assist those who are kind of unaware that their vehicle value has increased over the past year. And not changing this would have actually resulted in an additional $1.25 million from our taxpayers. And that, I think, would have been a significant burden.
So will this pretty much even out your tax rate on your vehicles?
It does. It's still, a lot of the newer vehicles are so far up there, it's probably not going to help those. It'll help them some, but we're really trying to even it out as best we could.
Residual values for used vehicles are so high compared to previous years. You don't have the depreciation.
Correct.
Market-wise that you've had, so that most municipalities have increased significantly or are using the recommended rate. Mm-hmm. And this is, we're only going to use 25% increase, basically, is what it boils down to.
Well, yes, we will cut the value, or the assessed value, the value that we will assess on is what we're going to cut.
You're just changing the percentage of assessment.
Correct.
To the benefit of the taxpayer.
And that allows you to keep your current rate and not have to change that. So this can be temporary. We can do this year and then see what it looks like next year. Maybe next year is you need to bring the rate down, but this gives us some time to see what might happen.
Didn't the legislature give us the right to do that this year, kind of post-COVID?
I think this has existed for a while, according to Valerie. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think this has been in the code of Virginia previously.
Some governments are not doing that. They're making it stay at 100%.
I think your attorney's got them.
I think what you're referring to is that the General Assembly passed a statute that allowed you to separate out automobiles from other personal property tax and make it levy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was? I knew
Mm-hmm.
there was something. I can't remember the details.
Thank you.
But we didn't take the recommended amount. We've only
Yeah, we're going
minimally
to
increased.
utilize the 75% ratio.
Any other board member questions or comments for Ms. Adcock? Not, I'll open it up to the public. I know there was one question.
Mr. Gardner, I'd like to say that I think that's a very common sense approach that she's speaking about, building 25% discount. I think it'll still equal about a 0.4% in revenue because the way that I have figured it up, it's about a 29% increase. As a citizen of Covington, I've approached the city council and asked them some questions about why, first of all, citizens weren't informed of this increase, and then also how the money was going to be spent. There was no plan. I have spoke to Mayor Tom Seibold since then, and I do believe that they have a plan to reappropriate some of that money. But as she said, I'm sure you guys would have heard a lot from the community, because I think the way that it was figured up was that possibly 35% increase in property tax. So, you know, those of us that drive newer vehicles probably would have felt that effect in the county as well. So, but I think that's a good way to handle it.
That was Valerie's suggestion.
Yes, sir.
And as you know, as a member of the budget committee and with Ms. Adcock, we knew that there was going to be a suggested increase on the waste charge. So in lieu of that, we tried to keep everything as level as possible, and I think it was very taxpayer-friendly for this year's budget. Any other public comment? If not, I'll go ahead and close this public hearing and move on to item 5F. Public hearing to consider the proposal of fiscal year 2022-23 budget for the year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Okay, I've given you a sheet with some of the highlights. Most of this we have discussed with the committee for our 2 or 3 meetings that we had, and with the full board in our work session. So no real estate or personal property tax increase. We actually get the full realization of the increased meals tax because we increased it with last year's at budget time, but it was not to go into effect until January 1st of '22. So that is, we'll have a full year of that. We're going to recognize the 75% of the personal the values for the '23 tax year, the increase in the refuse fee, some of the things that we are trying to do. We put some money aside. We put $100,000 to look at startup considerations for paid EMS in the county. We had some decrease in debt this year, and so that we were able to use that to plug some of these things in this budget. Opioid settlement, part of that is for general revenues by the county, and then some has to be specific to programs for opioids. We're still waiting the finalization. Well, the Virginia, I think the budget's final, but we don't have information from Comp Board. Have you heard anything about when the Comp Board might release budgets?
It was emailed last week.
Oh, okay.
The governor, when they
'Cause-
voted to
all right.
pass the budget.
Yeah, I knew they passed it, but I haven't seen anything on the website yet. They normally post it. Anyway, we'll get that information. Let's see. There's a 5% pay increase from the state for all the Comp Board positions and the state-supported positions. We've updated the salary scale for the county employees, which you have before you, that we will consider later. It is a combination of the Evergreen study that was done several years ago with those recommendations as framework, and it recognizes length of service for staff who are currently here, and it also makes our minimum wage at the county $15. We are having significant issues with recruitment and retention, and it's trying to find things to help. And in that thought, the E991 salary increases for dispatchers. Before Ryan left, he worked on a scale to adjust those salaries a little bit as well. Again, recruitment and retention. Increase in medical insurance was about 4%. Our workers' comp decreased just a little bit. And the Sheriff's Department is, they've requested a VDOT officer, which will expand the inmate work crew activity, and the revenue will cover the majority of that expense. I think it lacks maybe $1,500 of covering the entire budgeted expense. Then there were just a couple of changes since the work session that we had. There were a couple of funds that the school had that I verified with Kevin, and so those went on the expenditure and the revenue side. It's no new money. It's just the balance that we have to report in our budget for them. And there were some minor changes, liability insurance figures, some building and grounds, just some things that we kind of worked out, hammered out, and refined since the work session. And I'm glad to answer questions.
Board member, questions or comments? Mr. Bennett?
What general revenue debt did we get rid of?
Schools. We paid the schools off.
That's what I thought of it.
In fiscal '22, the middle school and the elementary school right next door were paid
That
off.
was a lot. That was a big pay.
Yes, sir. The E911 debt service backfilled some of that because it was designed that way.
That was the plan.
Yes.
This was just rolled off, they
Yes.
rolled in to cover that.
Yes, so.
One other question, any parts of our budget that will count on approval from the city of Covington? Their portion of?
Those joint services that we have, I don't, as far as I know, they haven't finalized their budget.
They attended their budget meeting last, I believe it was Thursday, and all the council members agreed that it was a good budget. The money that we had kind of lost there a couple of years ago had been restored, the 86 and then 25. So the money has been restored to the previous before we will cut that $110,000.
So you did get that back.
Yes, sir.
That'll help.
Yes, sir.
It's just nice to do it and not have any controversy, is what.
Absolutely.
Positive budgets on both sides, that's good. Any other board questions?
I think they're pending a public hearing tonight, and then they vote. I think it's next week,
Yeah.
pretty sure.
And we're going to vote the week after.
Yeah, so we tell.
Say that again, who votes first?
Covington's voting, I think, he said next week.
Next week or the week after, I think they have their public hearing tonight, if I'm not mistaken, or they have a work session tonight.
I think we vote the week after. too.
We vote the 21st because of, I'll be out of town and I think
Yeah, I'm on vacation.
we're both on vacation, but not together.
Yeah.
Me too.
But we do ours on the 21st, so we'll adjourn from this meeting to the 21st of June. Any public comment? If not, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. And that takes us out of the public hearing business.
Can
And
I ask a question? I'm gonna keep.
The special appropriations and the Masonic.
15,000.
Right. So the request from the Masonic Theater this year was $5,000, which was an increase of $2,500 from the prior year. And you guys said that you would do the full $5,000 if the Stars were able to go back to the theater.
Right.
So pending that, the $2,500 would be the appropriation, and then if the Stars can get back in there, then it'd be $2,500 additional.
Okay, well,